Everybody, want to welcome everyone to the City of San Carlos City Council Successor Agency to the Redevelopment Agency Housing Authority Special Meeting of October 16th, 2018. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Any changes to the order of the agenda?
None from staff this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone on the dais? Anyone else? All right, moving on. Item 4, public comment. This is for folks wishing to speak on items not on the posted agenda. I don't have any cards, but is there anyone wishing to speak tonight on anything not on the posted agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Consent calendar, 2 items. These items are usually voted on in one motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent calendar.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbert?
Yes.
And Mayor Grisilli?
Yes. All right. Item 6A, new business, consideration of adopting a resolution providing a grant to the United Church of Christ of San Carlos, UCCSC, for assistance in completing the renovation of Mahaney Hall for non-sectarian, non-profit purposes. Is there a staff report? Mr. Rubens?
Yes, I will be presenting the
Okay.
staff report on this item.
Fine.
And I'm trying to find it in my high-tech agenda here.
I have paper if you need it.
Okay. So this came up at the council agendized this item a few meetings ago to discuss a potential grant to the United Church of Christ of San Carlos for a grant to assist in the renovation of their meeting space and the playground for the daycare that is at the on-site. The basic legal question that comes up in these issues is can you identify on the record a public purpose for the grant? And I think I've laid that out in the staff report as some of the bases for doing that, and the resolution has the findings that you would make for a public purpose. I see that we have people from the church here that probably might add to some of the presentation, but we put some in the proposed resolution. There's some restrictions because constitutionally there's the gift has to be for non-sectarian purposes and can't be used for religious purposes. So that's all in the resolution for approval, that it would only be used for the purposes set forth in the grant.
Okay, just to let folks know how we do this, anyone up here on the dais that has questions will ask Mr. Rubens. And after we've asked our questions, I'll open it up for anyone who wishes to speak. So just to let you know how it's going to go. Mr. Olbert.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Greg. I just had one question, Greg, which is that given that constitutional constraint that you were talking about, are we under an obligation kind of from a report back point of view of making sure that the grant money is used in accordance with the grant? And if so, how do we do that?
Well, in the resolution, I provided that the city has an audit right to ensure the restriction that the funds not be used for religious worship, instruction, or proselytization, and that if the audit finds that the funds are used for these purposes, they shall be returned to the city. So I put a remedy for the council. It's not automatic. They don't have to provide us with an audit, but we can ask for it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Okay, Scott?
I will speak first.
Sure.
And
No problem.
if you have questions for Gwen, who is the church administrator, she can speak afterwards.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of remodeling going on at Mahaney Hall. Brand new windows, new curtains, trying to make it more efficient, trying to bring it up from where it was, say, 50 years ago, and try and update it and different things. one of the issues that we discovered through the fire marshal was that the stove had burners with the gas on. We need a hood. Ventilation created all kinds of problems. And then the other issue is the children's playground. I know we need more daycare in San Carlos, and this is something that we would help further that objective. And I want to take just a quick second and talk about all the groups that use this. The San Carlos Lions use it on a pretty much weekly basis. The Boy Scouts use it. The Cub Scouts use it. There's one I'm missing. The 4-H use it. The Junior Matrons, which is now called J&M Social and Service Club. We all use this on a regular basis. There's opportunities for more nonprofit uses for this space, but one of the key pieces of this is the kitchen and providing meals, and so that's what most of this grant is being asked for.
Okay.
So,
Questions? I have one. It looks, the packet you gave us, which I glanced at just now, there's a letter here that I guess I hadn't seen. Perhaps you sent it another place, but I hadn't seen it before. So basically what you're asking for is a grant in the amount of $56,150. That's what this, okay. Just want to, okay, great. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Certainly can. We're not angry or anything. We're happy to listen to you. If you just come up to the microphone. Thank you. We'll get it on the record. Thank you.
If you allow me to speak, I'm just going to run, in the mouth. So I would prefer to take questions.
I got you on 2 minutes, so believe me. And Scott knows I'm not a real generous guy. Past 2 minutes, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
And as Scott mentioned, the number of groups that use our facilities, in particular Friday Friendship, he forgot to mention that we are designated as an emergency disaster center. So we really need to upgrade our kitchen to prepare for that aspect of it. Okay. And he also referenced all the development that has been going on. Definitely everybody in the neighborhood has seen all the constructions and the dust and everything. But with respect to Mahaney Hall, there's been very, very little that's been part of the project. And so therefore the church has had to find some ways with which to adapt. The only thing that is part of the project was the roof and the windows themselves. But he referenced some curtains. That was a private donation by the junior matrons as well. So little by little. I should mention that in that fundraiser on September 22nd, through the effort of the Lions, led by the Lions and 11 other groups, community groups, they brought in $12,800. So that's a lot to say how the community feels about the facility is important to them. And not only that, they enjoyed working together. So again, that speaks to the spirit of the community and our place as their home. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
I've got my 2 minutes.
You're good. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this? Okay. It's not a public hearing per se, so if someone else comes up, we'll let that happen. So gentlemen, what do you want to do here? Mr. Olbert?
Actually, I just had a question, which is the resolution language that's in front of us for adoption doesn't actually specify a dollar amount.
That's correct, because at the time I drafted the staff report, and that there was it's totally up to your discretion. I wasn't recommending an amount at all. Just it's your call, so to speak.
Fair enough. So what I'm a little unclear about is I certainly would support and would be happy to make a resolution, but I'm wondering if we should perhaps talk about dollar amounts first.
Sure. Mr. Collins? I'm sorry, are you finished? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Mr. Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question would be to Jeff. A couple questions. What category would this come out of? What budget category?
Would come out of the city's general fund, unappropriated fund balance, which is typically hovers in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 million. I'm not exactly sure where it is at presently, but Certainly to cover an expenditure of this size, there'd be ample funding.
And I don't know if we can ask, maybe we can ask Scott and his associates. You've gotten other grants, right? Or you've gotten other contributions. I think you said, did I hear 12,000? Is that right?
Yes, so we actually, you were at the event. It was the bingo and pasta event, and we raised $12,500. This was our first attempt at raising funds specifically for Mahaney Hall. And I don't want to say, I don't want you to think that, you know, we do the kitchen and we're done. One of the other things that we need to do is to redo the bathrooms. They're not ADA compliant, and as we move towards having that American Red Cross emergency shelter there, that will also need to be done. And so we're not asking for that right now, and probably won't ask for it in the future. Our hope is that we got the ball started this year by having our first annual fundraiser, and that we will be doing fundraisers from this point forward to continue to help with the maintenance of Mahaney Hall. So we're sort of in a bind for these two things, and that's sort of why we're asking for these individual things right now.
All right.
So other than that fundraiser, there have been some other contributions. Like we said, it's mainly been the junior matrons, the San Carlos Lions, and this event where there were 11 organizations working together.
Okay. And forgive me, because I just got this stuff tonight. So I'm looking at a number of 109,000 about approximately for play structure and pouring concrete. And then there's a thing from Robert Stafford that talks about 56,000.
Yeah, we tried to give you all kinds of information. So the money for that play structure and area there is being raised by the Children's Place. Okay. And so they're responsible for part of it, and the church is responsible for part of it also because they own the entire property. And so that's just a piece of how do we finish the project. Okay.
Okay. So if money were no object, what would you be specifically requesting? Would it be the 56,000? Would it be a different number?
I'm not the money
territory here.
I'm not the money guy. I'm the guy who helps with the fundraising and things like that. I'll let Gwen speak about money.
We are not thinking of the council or the city as our piggy bank. We are trying to do our part in terms of what Scott was describing about the whole project. For the Children's Place is 109,000 or something like that. And of course, we share a portion of that. But actually within our request here, we're only asking for something like 8,000, which means we are on our own getting the other portion of it. So matching funds, if you will, kind of thing.
Right, yeah. Right. And usually what I'm looking for, because I've sat on a couple of county housing committees, is that when funding comes available for certain things, groups have gone out to all kinds of organizations that are requesting funds. And so I like to get a feeling for, you know, what other organizations are contributing and what the expectation here is. Okay. Well, I'm going to let some of my colleagues ask some more questions then.
So I think you need to stay there, Gwen. So I have to ask this question. It's a little awkward, but I'll still ask it because it is the public money that we're dealing with. So there are two houses being built on your property.
No.
That isn't your property?
It's a parsonage with office
I'm just
space.
asking what those two buildings are, I guess, then. I'm sorry, I thought there were two homes.
Parsonage multi-use building, which there's a community room, which the...
Okay, let me stop. I guess I'm there. What's on the corner? Two houses are being built.
I don't know. That's not any of ours.
Scott, go ahead, please. Yeah. I thought you owned the corner property, so...
So the way this development occurred, and I actually was sitting on the planning commission, but stepped off because I have a relationship with them. What occurred was the property was split in half, and the three houses on the corner, the three lots on the corner were sold to a developer who who took that money and is now building the new church and the new meeting rooms and parsonage, essentially replacing what was there before, but brand new for them. So the money that was there from all of that is being spent on the two new buildings, okay? And actually, they're a little bit behind in that. So it won't actually cover all the cost of that. So they're...
I had to ask the question
Yeah.
because it certainly looked like it was all one parcel, so I had to ask it.
It's now actually 4 parcels, 3 new homes, and then the church, what's left of the church and the parcels.
Thank you very much. Thank you for clearing that up for me. Other questions or comments? Motions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we adopt Resolution 2016.
2018? Sorry.
2018-098.
Anyways,
2018-098.
there you go. A resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos providing a grant in the amount of $56,150 to the United Church of Christ of San Carlos for assistance in completing the renovation of Mahaney Hall for non-sectarian, non-profit purposes.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Mr. Collins?
Yeah, I just, my question is, I think they asked for 8,000, and we're,
No, they asked for 56. It's in the letter here.
all right, well, she
I know, but she
mentioned,
just alluded to this, to the daycare part.
oh, to the daycare part, I'm sorry.
Just alluded to the daycare part.
All right, that clears it up, thank you.
The kitchen is 47.5.
Right,
And the daycare
right.
part would be 86.50. Mr. Olbert?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the church for being such a good community citizen for all these years. I've actually attended many, many events in the facilities there. No, actually not, but it may have appeared that way. But so I'm glad to help support this motion because that's exactly the kind of community spirit we love to see, and sort of having the community turn around and help out a little bit to keep things up seems like a reasonable thing to me.
Other comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Grocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Obert?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Grisilli?
Yes. All right. Checks in the mail. That's fine. Then I'll let you clap.
It all goes downhill from here.
Sure. Thank you for all the service. Yeah, you're right. All right. Okay. All right, so we'll move on. 6A, done. 6B, consideration of adopting a resolution approving a new management analyst position for the city manager's office and appropriating $89,400 from the general fund annually for this position, and approving a new senior management analyst position for the community development department and appropriating $192,500 from the general fund annually for this position. Ms. Peterson.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tara Peterson, Assistant City Manager. Before you this evening, we have the management analysts position requests, easy for me to say, both for the City Manager's Office and the Community Development Department. I will begin this with a presentation about the City Manager's Office, and then Al Savay will follow me with the Community Development Department presentation. So we are proposing replacing the part-time sustainability coordinator position as well as the contract content management services for the website. And these two combined would require that we ask for an additional $89,400 for a full-time management analyst. The first proposal is to convert the part-time sustainability coordinator position, and that is due to the fact that we have a lot of turnover. We've had this position in place since 2015, and we've had 3 different incumbents in the position. We have learned that it's difficult to recruit for this part-time position. The candidates that have filled it have gone on to take over full-time positions or to go back to school full-time. And the cost for this position is $26,200 annually. The position is currently vacant, and we're, depending upon this position and this decision this evening, we will move forward with that position or not. And then we thought we would absorb the contract management, content management services that are provided by Brafton. During our conversion to the new website, their services proved invaluable to us. But since then, Vision, who is the provider of our website, has offered a new plugin which can do a lot of different things that our content management services were providing to us, such things as automated scans of our website with email reports, accessibility issue scans, flagging of quality assurance issues, setting custom policies and formatting, and those kinds of things, visitor heat maps, clicking, those kinds of counts. That all can be performed now by this plugin from Site Improve. In addition to that, we have found that staff in the city manager's communications team are better suited to do the actual approval of any kind of updates to the website because we're more familiar with the city than is Brafton. So between those two things, we think we can manage to do it ourselves more effectively. And the current contracted amount is $51,500 annually. In addition to these two services that we could have this position undertake, we also feel that this position would be ideally suited to work on the community engagement expansion through the Citizens Academy options. We have not been able to undertake that task that council had requested of us to look at an online option and perhaps a youth option, simply because we haven't had the staff to be able to handle that. We also are getting more and more requests throughout the community for us to look at residential parking permit programs, and we simply don't have the manpower to be able to do that. So we feel that this position could help with that. We also want to do more engagement with outside partners and organizations that we just don't have the bandwidth to do. We also feel this position is ideally suited to help with the community foundation as we move forward with that and have some tasks that need to be undertaken by city staff. And then finally, managing any kind of council strategic planning options and special projects. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Al Savay, who will talk about what his department's needs are. And then we'll both be available for questions at the end.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The majority of the work that we do in community development is technical in nature. For instance, our building inspectors are experts in applying our building code, reading plans and doing inspections in the field, and our city planners evaluate development plans and make sure that they conform to our zoning code and state laws and other laws. The technical aspects of our work require careful consideration and specialized expertise in a highly competitive marketplace. And all of this takes up the majority of our workday. On top of this, staff serves several committees and commissions. And what you're seeing on the screen is some of the things that we think a senior management analyst can do. As the director, I'm engaged with all aspects of this work, and like the conductor of an orchestra, I try to make sure the music plays and we don't hit any sour notes. Increasingly, I'm seeing that the day-to-day management of the infrastructure needed to do the best work that we can as a cohesive technical unit is pulling us in lots of different directions, other directions. And we're using our unique technical expertise in areas that may not best be suited to our mission and our effectiveness. A high-level management analyst would, and these are some more ideas for what this person would do, but a high-level management analyst would allow us to continue to do the technical side of our work and free us up to be more efficient in areas that are taking up more and more of our time. This position would also help us to close what I see as a widening gap in opportunities, missed opportunities, such as applying for grant funding, keeping a better handle on responding to regional policy development and external communications. We could also use more analytical help on internal and external project coordinating, troubleshooting, data tracking, and project management systems. So that's why we're asking for this position this evening. And with that, you can see the total fiscal impacts in the city manager's office would be $89,400 to the general fund, and in the community development department, it's creating a new position at a high level of $192,500 for a total of $281,900 to the general fund. And that concludes our presentation. We're available to answer questions.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two questions. The first one for staff. So we just went through, I don't know, 12 hours of budget hearings about 2 or 3 months ago, and my recollection is that these positions were not identified in terms of the budget needs. Is that true? And what's changed since then, if that's true?
That is correct. So the primary driver of this occurred recently when we had our third resignation of the part-time sustainability coordinator, which back during budget time we had, and the incumbent was terrific, and we had very high hopes that that was going to work out and continue on, and ultimately that didn't work out to be the case. Other opportunities arose, and we saw another incumbent depart, which led us to begin the conversation of, should we try this a fourth time, or do we really have any reason to expect moving forward that we're going to see anything different other than we spend tens of thousands of dollars recruiting and training an employee and bringing them into the organization only to get less than a year's worth of work before we see them go and we have to start over again. The discussion with community development was actually ongoing. It was happening during the budget time. It didn't make it to the council level. It was conversations that Al and I were having, and I think to Al's credit, he doesn't like to come in and ask for more money. He likes to, work hard and get the objectives of the council done with the resources that he's got. I've been actually pushing him for the last couple of years to ask for some more help. And I think sort of maybe the straw that's broken the camel's back for Al and really sort of pushed him over the line, recognizing that he needs to be there, are twofold. The fact that we've had a very robust project ongoing with the zoning and housing issues, and there's actually a couple other follow-up projects that are likely in its wake that are similar. And the other aspect, I think, too, that's kind of come home, not just in community development, but throughout the organization, is we've gotten a lot younger as a staff, I think over the last 10 or so years, and we're discovering that, with that youth, we've got a lot of benefits in terms of the energy and enthusiasm and new ideas that have come into the organization, but also we're learning that our workforce operates in terms of their life a little bit differently than maybe what previous generations operated, in terms of wanting to take off time in larger blocks, in terms of maternity leaves and paternity leaves and leaves of absence for world travel and those kinds of things. And this is certainly not an employer market we're in right now, and hasn't been for a while. It's an employee market, so we're trying to be responsive to those needs. But we're seeing impacts in terms of being able to meet the deadlines that the council would like us to be able to meet, and be responsive to the council and the community in all instances in the work that we're trying to do. Certainly to the extent that the city's been financially doing well the last few years. we have the financial wherewithal to do this, and it would seem to us that the priority of the council in recent years has been to get the work done. And having analysts, the nice thing is we do rotate them around and move them around and be able to bring them in and out when different positions, we have temporary vacancies. We can put them together and team them up to get some of the specialized projects that the council's come up with over the last few years. So we think of them as a little bit broader utility position, and it all just kind of came together at the same time, so we thought we would come in and ask you what you thought. At the end of the day, if you'd rather wait until next budget time to address this, that certainly wouldn't be the end of the world.
Thanks. I just have two quick follow-ups. One is that I know on the community development side, we've traditionally flexed to meet the needs using consultants and Neil Martin and Associates. And is there a reason that that's not appropriate in this particular case?
So the difference there is that does work. It works very well for us on the technical side. So we're bringing in specialists. They're city planners. They've got degrees in that and maybe certifications. So mostly on that site, sometimes we bring in economists and housing experts, and we can bring those people in and out. But that's really not, and that's for specialized projects and workload associated with those technical issues. But what we're seeing is we're being asked to do a lot of things that have nothing to do with the day-to-day operations of a community development department necessarily. Things have changed in the last 20 years a lot since I've been working in this field. We used to just do city planning and housing and economic development, but now we're being asked to do so many things, so many other objectives that span numerous issues and other departments. And so while those people can kind of take up that slack a little bit, we're asking people to do a lot of things that have nothing to do with their background too.
Okay. So basically, just a short answer though is you think basically you couldn't solve the need with a consultant?
It would be really tough to do that.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, among the existing people in your department, is every role filled, or are you still? Okay. So how many roles are open right now?
We have a senior planner, but that's a consultant contract, and we have, trying to think, an associate level planner that we need. That is a city employee, an assistant and an associate that needs to be filled, and we're backfilling with consultants at the time at this time.
Okay.
So they're all planning related.
They're all planning related. So this particular role, there's no open headcount already.
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
Mr. Olbert.
Thank you, Bob. I have to press the button faster next time. Cameron stole two of my questions.
Heavens.
Sorry. That's okay. Let's see. One, just start with a relatively straightforward question. The dollar amounts that we've got down here, are they fully loaded, or are those the salary levels? And if they're not the salary levels, what salary level are we talking about?
These are fully loaded.
Okay, so what's the salary levels that we're talking about?
Don't have that. We could get that to you. Just don't have that.
Is it in a ballpark? Can't you ballpark 10%, 12%, 15%? I mean, that's what the benefits are, aren't they? You do the math.
30, but yeah. You know what? We'll let people estimate that and come back to it if we can. Ballpark, I agree with you, is fine. I'm just looking for that.
I actually have a little bit of information because I have the last employment notification.
Okay.
So the senior management analyst, the salary is between $8,092 and $9,800 a month. That's for the senior position. And the management analyst, I don't have that one. This document didn't have that, but it's less than that.
So the numbers that you were quoting that are for the more expensive of the two positions. Okay. All right. The somewhat broader question is, I appreciate the examples of the type of work that you'd have these positions do. Part of the rationale that you both gave for asking for these positions to be filled are things that were either missed or were at risk of being missed, opportunities or whatnot. So I'd like to get a little bit of insight, a little bit more specificity. Are there things you can share with us that it's like, gee, we missed X, or we really had to struggle with Y in order to get through it for some grant deadline or whatnot? I'm trying to get a feel for what's actually at risk, what has been at risk.
Well, I'm not sure we really missed anything in the city manager's office. We just haven't had the bandwidth to be able to accomplish some of the tasks that we'd like to. In the strategic plan, we have the request to do some more research and possibly launching different Citizens Academy options, such as the online option. And that's just going to take some work doing research and developing the curriculum and getting all of that recorded. So that's a heavy lift that we just haven't had the manpower to do.
Yeah, the two things that immediately come to my mind are, or actually three, the update on the climate action plan that has kind of been pushed off the last couple of years. We canceled one of the Citizens Academies. We didn't hold it. We delayed it because we didn't have the staff to be able to do it. There was an opening at the time that delayed it. And then we're starting to see a backlog in requests for parking, neighborhood parking management, which our staff has been in the city manager's office. And as you know, this is a pretty new program to the city. And we're starting to see more areas making those requests. And it's a very staff-intensive process to engage the specific neighborhood, identify who they are, and then go through the process with them of them voting and letting us know and then working. And that's kind of getting to some of the stuff that Al was talking about, where that begins then to involve other departments that then have to work together. And these are all responsibilities that historically just haven't existed. And not only do they exist now, but they're growing.
Al, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I was proud of the fact that we in community development were really good at grant funding, and we got hundreds, if not millions of dollars in grant funding over the last 10 years. And in the last few years, we just don't have the bandwidth to go after those things. And in some cases, for instance, like downtown parking study, we were able to get grants that would supplant money that would come out of the general fund to pay for those things. So we were able to kind of do that and take money from sources that we saw coming in. So that's one area that I miss doing, and I think benefits the city as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if...
In terms of the financials, we didn't do a super deep dive on this when we were putting the numbers together, but I expect in the future we might see some of this. As you know, we have a lot of different funds within the city, and people's time gets chopped up to various funds. It's not all general fund money. And in community development, a big portion of what pays for those services is coming in terms of development fees and whatnot. So it's being paid by the private sector to the city to cover our costs. Not everything that the planners do operates that way. And so I will expect to see in the future iterations, as we do those fee studies and look at how employees are allocated, that because we're going to be able to take some of the non-traditional or non-planning development related activities off of planners' plates, that means there's going to be more planner time that can be charged to projects. So you'll actually see some costs come down in the general fund in other areas as a result of having a position like this in community development to sort of handle some of these other projects and initiatives.
Okay, thank you. One sort of last question, which I want to follow up on one that Cameron asked. And I know it's difficult to sort of prove a negative, but an article of faith for people who believe in market economics is that you can always hire a consultant to do anything if you're willing to pay enough money. So I guess I'd like to get a little bit more perspective from each of you on why in this particular environment we can't simply pay more on the consulting and contract rate and get a person here. And by the way, I'll put that in further context, for me, one of the issues that's in the back of my mind in considering approval of this is there's a lot of people out there who think the economy is fairly close to turning. Okay, now they could be dead wrong. They've been wrong before. But if they're right, that's precisely the time in which you should be willing to pay more for a contractor consulting position, not actually hire somebody, because otherwise you may be having to be faced with laying off people, in the not too distant future.
I'm going to answer this one. I'll put on. I'm going to usurp a little bit of Rebecca's authority here and go back into my old position and answer that question very simply. And we don't believe this position would qualify under PERS for something that we could contract out. In other words, PERS puts limits on what we can and can't contract with, so that you don't just circumvent hiring any employees and just contract everything out, which obviously would decimate a system like that. And so as a PERS agency, we would be audited, and the penalties are much larger than the numbers you're seeing here. So that it just wouldn't work given the work we're talking about and the ongoing nature of it in terms of coordinating between departments and those kinds of things. Hiring a contractor for a specific development project makes a lot of sense, but hiring a contractor to do these kinds of projects doesn't really lend itself to the efficiency of getting the work done over and over and over again in different capacities. And like I said, when you look at the PERS rules for what constitutes a contractor, this would look very much like we chopped up a position and contracted it out because we didn't want to hire a person because we were trying to avoid PERS rules.
Well, and your knowledge of PERS is several orders of magnitude higher than mine. But I thought I heard both Al and Tara say that part of the reason this request was being made is they were having difficulty finding somebody to operate in a consulting or contract fashion, which I'm just trying to put that in the context of what you just said.
Right. No, I didn't hear Al say that. I didn't hear that. I won't speak for Al. He can answer that as well. For the city manager's office, we've been hiring a part-time employee, and we've had difficulty keeping the part-timer because of the nature of part-time work. So in other words, really we think that we need to go full-time to be able to retain a person. And within part-time rules, PERS has specifications, but I do believe it was a part-time PERS employee that they qualified for PERS, so they were just limited hour.
Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Cameron took one of Mark's questions, Mark took one of mine, but has to do with the total compensation. When you say fully loaded, I guess, Tara, this is for you, that I assume includes PERS contribution, since we're talking about PERS?
Yes, full benefits. Okay. I do actually have the numbers that were requested by Mark a moment ago. So for the management analyst, the salary alone is between $82,000 and $100,000 a year. And for the senior management analyst, it's $97,000 to $118,000 a year. Okay. So that's just salaries only.
Do you know approximately what the area median income is for this area? Anybody have that?
I remember that the highest level of the affordable housing family of four income was $120,000 a couple of years ago, or last time I got a housing report.
Let me refine my question. The area mean income for one person.
It's $117,000, is that correct, Martin? That's for four. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just wondering
for a family of four. So
yeah, for us. Well, while he's looking at that, I do have one other question, and I'm not sure if it's probably for Jeff, because it's kind of a budget question, and maybe for Rebecca. And that is, are you comfortable with our recent revenue picture that we can support this ongoing commitment?
Yes, I am comfortable with our revenue picture. I think for the last 8 straight years in the budget, we have increased those revenue projections in the budget every year that the council has adopted, and in the actuals we have exceeded those increased budget projections. So in other words, we keep raising the revenue in the budget, and we keep even beating what we're raising it to. So we've done well. We're in the process right now of closing out our last fiscal year. That we're going to have an item for the council a few weeks from now, and all the numbers aren't in, but I can paint a picture for you for one piece of it. We had last year alone approximately $1.5 million in salary and benefit savings, and that was directly related to vacancies in the city. So, you know, so sort of as you could see, had we had these two positions, let's say we'd only had $1.3 million in salary savings, and we'd have had two more bodies to try to help fill in and keep things moving as we're, you know, dealing with a very hot job market. You know, we've seen employees go back to school, relocate to other areas, and take career promotional opportunities with neighboring jurisdictions. We're not a large city. We can't simply promote everybody who's, you know, worthy of being promoted as a city. So sometimes we have to send our best and brightest elsewhere, and we've certainly seen in this economy great competition amongst neighboring jurisdictions for that talent.
So I think the sort of the theme of this, or what I've been hearing, is that, you know, yes, we are increasing the budget by $281,000, $282,000, but the long-term implications of these positions is that because of grant writing ability and the ability to work with different departments and that sort of thing, there's going to be offsetting revenue that's going to come in. It's going to sort of, you know, amortize this, and also just reduce the actual impact of it against the budget.
Yes, I believe that what you're going to see in about a month from now is the largest budget surplus in city history. So.
Okay, I think that ends my questions.
Mr. Grocott?
So Ron just took one of my questions.
Oh, jeez.
Having a good time here.
I don't have anything to ask.
The only question I had then, since Ron asked about, you know, kind of erasing this with efficiency and so forth, the increase, is I'm just curious if Al or one of you could speak to, aside from what Jeff was saying, it's not always legal to hire a contractor, just in these different positions where we do have contractors, the teamwork, especially with what Jeff was saying about younger employees, you know, you can go work for certain companies, and, you know, that's part of it, is you feel like you're part of this team and you're accomplishing this task and getting this job done. Can you speak to that about hiring an actual employee versus, if you even could do this as a contract position?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of aspects to your question. One is just a kind of bigger picture thing. I think that what I'm seeing is there's a lot of folks coming out of college or with a few years of experience that want to work for public agencies because they have more of a sense of purpose and accomplishment and, you know, seeing the fruits of their labor. So we are able to somewhat attract, you know, some great people, but it's Silicon Valley, and they can really go anywhere. So that's just kind of one kind of painting a picture of that. But I think that the one thing with contractors is, and part of the good thing and part of the frustration with it is, the good thing is from a business standpoint, I think, and going to part of the question is, we have a lot of planning staff who are contract planning staff, and if the economy goes sideways or south or something, those would be leveled down based on the activity that we have. But if you're, you know, and that happens. But if you're looking at somebody who really, you need to get to understand an organization, to get to work with the different players in City Hall, get to know the council members and the commissioners and the citizenry of your town, there's just nothing better than to have somebody who's here and knows that they're here and they're not going to just walk off to the next best contract. So that is one of the frustrations as a manager of a public agency, is that we'll get somebody great, they're on contract, and then all of a sudden they take a full-time job with another city, or they pass through for a promotion that we can't give them. Whereas if they're part of the organization, they're part of the family, then you have more sort of, and more management control over that person. They're not controlled by an outside manager. They're controlled by the manager in-house. So I hope that kind of...
That does. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, as was mentioned, all the questions seem to have been asked. So, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? All right. Gentlemen, what do you want to do here?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's two requests here. I'd like to make a motion for the first request.
Okay.
So I move to adopt Resolution 2018-99,
99.
a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving a new management analyst position for the city manager's office and appropriating $89,400 from the general fund annually for this position.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that? We're going to split this up, Mr. Rubens. Okay? It's okay?
It's okay. It's a resolution, so we will have to develop the second resolution for the mayor's signature, assuming both pass.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just make a brief
Sure, go ahead.
discussion? So from my perspective, the financial state of the city is excellent, but we've done a great job running really lean. And I think adding extra heads, I think, shouldn't be done lightly. I personally would rather it be done part of the normal budget process. And we have the majority of the council turning over in a few weeks. It's been stated, hey, the council is asking us for all of this work and we need to have the staff to meet it. But those priorities may change significantly as the majority of the council changes. And so I'm hesitant to add that extra position because I know it's very difficult to roll that position back once it's created. Instead, to say go into the planning process with the new council, figure out what the priorities are, and then staff accordingly. That would be my preference. But for this one position, I think, I have gone through the process with Tara of like, hey, we can't keep anyone in this position, and taking an existing headcount and converting it to full-time. I think the argument for that is fine. So that's why I made the motion.
Okay. Mr. Collins?
Yes, I just want to say, I think in response to Cameron's point, I think the city's been pretty nimble in the past at responding to economic downturns and upswings. We cut benefits before, we cut staff, we cut salaries. So that's not really my concern. And my concern is that it's really sort of in the opposite direction, is that I've lost count of how many people that I've gotten to know here who I think have been doing a great job, and all of a sudden they're not here. And I'm just, what happened? And when I go to some of these meetings on some boards and commissions I sit on, like Home for All, and sometimes these organizations invite staff of other cities to come. And I see some of our former staff members now working for other cities. And one of the reasons, which is troubling, and tells me that, people are going to move on, but I don't want it to be because, we just can't pay them enough. And not that I want to loosen the purse strings irresponsibly, but, one of the reasons I asked the question about area mean income is that when you look at these numbers, not only are they barely around the area mean income. I mean, they're not close to what they pay in Silicon Valley. So if anybody has a notion that, city's overpaying for certain positions, I'd have an issue with that. So I intend to support this. I think this is vitally needed. And when I look at all of the duties that we're asking these people to do, I think it's entirely justified.
Mr. Olbert?
Thank you, Bob. I actually have sort of two questions for each of, one each for Ron and for Cameron. Ron, have you thought about making a competing motion to just support both positions? You don't have to answer that right now. But The question, Cameron, I wanted to ask you is, I understand the logic of what you're saying, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but part of that almost sounds a little bit like, because of your the assignments and responsibilities you have of being on the council in particular areas, that you have more personal familiarity with the situation in Tara's portion of the shop. And I guess what I'm wondering is, if that's the case, then why doesn't sort of the same logic say, well, treat both the requests the same way, either ask both of them to wait until the full budget cycle or approve both of them now? I just like your perspective on it.
I mean, my general perspective is it's about either creating new headcount versus making an existing headcount more effective for the city. That's sort of and I have witnessed our inability to get work product out of the current headcount, whereas, so I hear the proposal from staff of saying this would be much more effective if we change this role. That makes sense to me, versus saying we need to create a whole new role and here's the roles and responsibilities. That I'm sort of less sold on.
In other words, because the first one is assignments that we clearly see are not being filled today because we can't keep person in the position, so change the nature of the position, and the other is sort of additional responsibilities or new things that we might want to have done. Okay, I get that.
That's my logic, yeah.
I get that.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any more discussion?
Can I just have, Cameron, can you clarify your motion, please?
Motion is just for the first position.
First part. Split it in two.
Is this the time to offer a competing motion?
You could do that.
All right, I'd like to adopt the resolution as previously stated, except as written. Do I need to repeat it in full?
You don't have to repeat it in full, but I hear your motion is that you want to approve the recommended resolution from staff.
I do.
Second.
All right, so the way Robert's Rules works is we take the second one first. So that's on the table. Any comments or discussion on that one? All right, hearing none, roll call on Mr. Collins' motion to approve both ends of this resolution.
Councilmember Olbert?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grigocott?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
No.
Mayor Grisilli?
Yes. All right, so that carries. All right, we'll move on to, thank you, folks. We'll move on to 6C. 6C, consideration of introducing ordinances amending Municipal Code Chapter 2.08.020 regarding City Council compensation, Chapter 2.10 regarding City Treasurer and deleting Deputy City Treasurer compensation, and adopting a resolution adopting an updated elected official salary and benefit resolution. Ms. Mendenhall.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Rebecca Mendenhall, Administrative Services Director. The presentation before you tonight is very similar to the one that I did on the last council meeting, so I can go ahead and continue, or you can go ahead and have questions or discussion. It's up to you.
I was the only one that wasn't present, but I did read all the information and follow up, and I think I'm pretty well up to speed. I don't know what the conversation per se was, but I think it'll be a different one tonight anyway, so I don't think you need to necessarily give a presentation. Mr. Rubens, what do you think?
I think the staff report speaks for itself, and this is really the second time the council's heard it. Okay. The main issues, just from the perspective tonight, the ordinances would be up for introduction, and then the resolution, I think, is staff's just looking for direction to see if there's any amendments you want to make on that one.
All right.
Right.
Questions for Ms. Mendenhall then, if there are any questions, as opposed to comments or discussion?
I have questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rebecca, I was looking at the, I think it was the county, San Mateo County elected officials pay report. It lists base pay, total benefits, total pay and benefits for the year. And there seemed to be, in some cases, even in the same city, a pretty significant difference between one council member and another. Now, I realize some of that is in pay and some of it's in benefit, but why would it be so large?
So this is the information that's reported by each agency. So depending on how their payroll staff reports, so they may include certain pay as base pay rather than just the stipend. We tried to drill down and we sent out emails to some of the agencies and we didn't get responses back to clarify what those are. But this is as was reported by each agency to Transparent California.
Can I make a point? It could be, and I'm just throwing this out, like I'm just glancing at San Bruno here, benefits 29,000, some are zero. They could have deferred compensation. This council member might have gone off or something, it's possible. Or, Ron, they could have gone, and so but they reported it, you know what I'm saying? And so that's possibly how it could be, because I guarantee you that one council member is getting zero and the other is getting 30,000 in benefits, and that's not going to fly. So I think those are special situations, is what I would say. Mr. Rubens?
Yeah, there is a provision in state law that council members can waive their salary and/or benefits, so that might be part of why we're seeing some zeros in some of or lower benefits too.
I suspected that was part of it, but I just wanted to clear it up.
Right, and there's different benefit packages that are offered by each agency. A lot of the agencies offer similar benefits as toward their management group, similar to what we do. So depending on what council members may decide to sign up for or not, it could change the dollar amounts.
I know that, for example, in Hillsborough, they only meet once a month. Most councils, I assume, meet twice a month. Are there others other than Hillsborough that only meet, say, once a month, or meet more than twice a month? Do we know that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I know that there are just a couple agencies in the county that do monthly meetings. 2 is by far the more typical model, and then I don't know of anybody in the county other than the board that does weekly meetings. But there are some cities out there that do. To talk a little bit about the last issue too, there has been benefit tiering that's happened over the years. So for example, not even all of you on the dais have the exact same benefit package as one another because of tiering that happened, and that tiering mirrored the tiering that exists at the employee level as well. So
you could have a council member in, say, San Bruno that's been on it for 20 years, and the benefit structure that it was in place then is not the benefit structure that's in place today.
That's
for the newer
possible because that exists here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that might explain part of it then. All right.
Other questions? Mr. Collins? Other questions?
No.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Does anyone else have any questions of Rebecca? Okay. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, seeing none. I guess, gentlemen, if you want to make motions, and we'll see if we can get 3 votes, I guess.
All right. Well, I'll start. It looks like we are just introducing ordinance number, I move to introduce ordinance number
1534.
1534, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Santa Cruz amending Municipal Code Chapter 20, 2.08.020 regarding council compensation. We need to stop there and...
You need to insert an amount.
All right, I didn't see that. Okay, so I think at the report we got that the county average was $587.
Put up on the screen.
Okay. $567. All right. I'm gonna recommend that we round it off to $560.
Okay, a motion for $560. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Olbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I alluded to at the last time when this was brought up, I am planning on voting against the measure. Frankly, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it one way or another, whether we increase it or not, because it's a relatively small dollar amount, even in aggregate, out of the city's total budget. My main concern actually just has to do with the fact that I believe that there are employees of the city, part-time employees of the city, who put in essentially as many hours as people on the dais do, and they are offered in aggregate substantially less in the way of benefits, total compensation, obviously not necessarily in salary form. And as I first brought up a few years ago when we talked about this similar topic, that's always been a concern of mine. So that's why I'll be voting against this.
Mr. Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made the motion, this is something that I've thought about for a long time. Let me state, first of all, I love being a member of this council. If it paid zero, I'd probably still do it. But I didn't get into this for the money. It's not just about 2 meetings a month. Most of us spend about 30 hours a month or more on council-related boards, commissions, subcommittees, and other functions as part of our official duties. And as everybody has seen, San Carlos offers the lowest compensation of any council member in the county. I don't think it's about putting more money in the pockets of elected officials. It's about making sure that potential leaders are modestly compensated for the work we all expect them to perform. And I also believe that if we don't increase the base compensation, and I think this is a very modest amount, I believe mostly only those that are retired or well off will eventually run for council. I mean, look at the makeup of this council. We're mostly older, white, except for one. Thank you. Older, that is. You're not older.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Collins.
My question is it representative of the community? I think not. And I did a little of my own calculations, and I took every city in San Mateo County that has a population of 34,000 or less. I took out Redwood City, and I took out San Bruno and Pacifica, because all those are bigger cities and they have more responsibilities. And I looked at the average total compensation, total benefits, and it was about 25,000. And so even when you add this in, we would still be less than that total compensation. So, and just so people understand what we do, when I go to things like the Progress Seminar, I pay for my own hotel. When I go to other city-related business, I don't submit mileage or car allowances. And I sit on various boards, commissions. They don't offer any pay. But I think that you have a point, I think you're going to reach a point where in the future, otherwise qualified candidates are not going to consider running because it would seriously impact their livelihood, or it's just going to make that much of a difference where they're going to go, maybe, maybe not. And, this is not our primary job. Well, for a couple of us, it's not our primary job. And so when you have a situation where someone's weighing whether or not to run, I want all qualified people to think about running, and I don't want them to be thinking about, I don't think I can afford 30 hours a month away from my job. I want good people to run for council now and in the future.
Okay, Mr. Grocott.
If anybody wonders, this is a really old issue, meaning it's interesting to go back and read about founding documents and founders and those who wrote the Constitution and so forth, and they battled over this. One of the biggest things when they were, talking about the Constitution in 1787 was, do we pay the chief executive, the president? Washington actually, he didn't take it. He didn't take his pay, and there's always that option once it's established and it's there. I agree with a lot of what Ron said, and I can just only speak from my own experience. To me, it's not, the compensation is really not meaningful relative to what we're doing tonight, sitting at the dais, having a council meeting. But when we have council retreats or a lot of things that happen during the day, and you have to take away from your business life, especially if you're self-employed. I mean, I've sat at council retreats and given up basically the whole day. And for me, that's, I charge by the hour, so I can do the math. And so I agree with Ron that unless you want to gentrify the council to be just a certain kind of person, no pay. I would actually have gone higher, but the motion's on the table. I'll go for it. And Ron mentioned also his choice to not charge his hotel and not charge his mileage. That's something that I think could be considered also in the future, is offering council members just a flat auto allowance because we do drive places and go to different meetings. If you go up to the airport roundtable meeting, that's all the way up in near the airport in Millbrae, and so you're putting mileage on. And I've done mileage reports sometimes and other expense accounts, but it's pain, so you tend not to. And it would be much simpler to just have some type of allowance that allows for travel that council members are expected to do. So just wanted to share that.
It's hard for me because when I ran for office, I didn't realize what the pay was. I didn't know we even got paid. I didn't look at it that way. I can understand certainly people who are self-employed, or even if they're not self-employed, have to take away from work, from family, and other things that I didn't really have that issue. But I look at the total compensation, counting our medical benefits, and if we vote yes on this, we'll be around $1,388, which will put us second to Foster City, which I think I'm going to move to, considering they get $1,000 in medical benefits. But anyway, I just think it's above the median by a large amount. The median's around, if you add it all together, all the cities is around $800, maybe a little more or a little less. I don't know. My math could have been off. And again, Ron, you like you said, you went through and took all the larger cities out, and some of the larger cities are less than some of the smaller cities. Burlingame and Colma being fairly large, bigger than San Mateo and Redwood City in total compensation, if this information is correct. So it's very difficult for me to and again, just so everybody understands, 3 of us will not be affected by this. It isn't going to change. It'll only take effect with the new council, and 2 people it will benefit, but 3 of us it will not. It's just difficult for me to vote for $567. I can see it should go up from 300, but it's just hard for me, that having studied this, to vote on that amount of money. So anyway, Mr. Collins, another comment?
Yeah, the only other comment I would make is that when I was doing my research, I deliberately took out the larger cities because when I included them, the number got even bigger. So yeah. I was trying to be fair and compare us to peer cities.
I'm just saying, it's all in perspective. You can make these numbers dance on a pin, how you want to make them come out. So it doesn't one way or the other. So I won't be supporting this either if it comes to a motion. So unless there's another motion that's made, perhaps. But other than that, we have $567 on the table. Is there any other comments? If not, we'll have. I'm sorry?
It's introducing an ordinance.
Introducing the ordinance, which we have to adopt it later, two weeks from now, or a month from now.
On the 22nd, you'll be seeing this again.
Okay, and then we have to adopt it.
Do we need to?
The 22nd would be the day you would, assuming it passes,
right.
It will come for adoption on the 22nd.
But in theory, we could pass it today to introduce it, and we could defeat it on the 22nd.
That's true.
That's possible. Okay, just want to let everybody know.
And just as a point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, I thought I heard Councilmember Collins say 560 even.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. 560 even. Correct. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Right.
My bad. 560. So there's Mr. Collins, you have no comment?
All I wanted to say was I think I only read the first one.
Right. That's right.
And that's all we're.
That's right. We're just reading the first one. City
All
Council. Right. That's all we're doing right now. City Council. All right, so there's a motion. Any more discussion, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Groskat?
Yes.
Councilmember Obert?
No.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Grisilli?
No. All right, passes 3-2. That ordinance is introduced and will come up for adoption on the 22nd. All right, second item. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move to introduce ordinance number
1535.
1535, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Carlos amending Municipal Code Chapter 2.10 regarding city treasurer and deleting deputy city treasurer compensation.
So we'll need the amount for that as well.
Pardon me?
We'll need the monthly amount for that as well.
Well, I would put the same amount in.
At 560?
Yep, they have been paid the same as council before, yes, at 560.
All right. Any discussion on this?
I second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? The only thing I can say is, sorry, Mike, I'm not voting for you, but roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Groscut?
Yes.
Councilmember Obert?
No.
Mayor Grisilli?
No. All right, that's also introduced, and we have the third one.
All right, I move to adopt Resolution 2018-100,
-100.
a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos adopting an updated elected official salary and benefit resolution.
Mr. Mayor, this one was a placeholder for the council to change the benefits. If there's no changes being proposed, you don't have to take action on that, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
No action needed, no motion.
If there's no changes you want to make to the resolution, you don't have to take any action on this particular.
All right, is there anyone that wishes to change anything? If not, we will pass on that one, and number 6 is finished. All right, moving on. 6C. All right, we will move on to 6D, consideration of adopting a resolution approving a relocation agreement for the removal of a static billboard at 239 Old County Road, APN 046-053-080, and approving a lease and sublease agreement for a digital billboard at 1119 Industrial Road, APN 046-152-210. Mr. Savay.
Mayor and City Council, yes, as stated by the mayor, this is for a new digital billboard at 119 Industrial and the removal of another billboard on Old County Road. Here to deliver that presentation is Martin Romo, and we also have Jeff McEwen from Outfront Media, who is here to answer any questions of the mayor and council. So I'm going to ask Martin to come up.
Welcome, Martin.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Martin Remo, Economic Development Manager. So before you this evening is a consideration to approve 3 agreements. One is a relocation agreement for the removal of a static billboard at 239 Old County Road. The second is a lease agreement between the city and the property owner of 1119 Industrial Road for a portion of land. As you may remember, our municipal code requires new billboards to be on city-owned or leased property. And the third is a sublease agreement between the city and Outdoor Media LLC for the construction and operation of a digital billboard at 1119 Industrial Road. This map illustrates where the proposed billboard and other existing and recently approved digital billboards are located within the city. The star in green portrays where the existing Clear Channel digital billboard is operating at Branston Road. The star in blue reflects where the recently approved Clear Channel digital billboard will be installed at 815 American Street. The star in yellow depicts where the proposed Outfront Media digital billboard before you today would be constructed. And the triangle in red illustrates where the existing Outfront Media static billboard would be removed from at 239 Old County Road. This is what the static billboard at 239 Old County Road looks like, which is proposed to be removed. This is at the intersection near Brigada Road. The proposed new digital billboard would be located behind the building at 1119 Industrial Road, which is where Ross Stores and REI are current tenants. Here is a photo simulation of the proposed digital billboard on Highway 101 with the view northbound. A photo simulation of the same billboard from 101 southbound. And a photo simulation on site from the rear parking lot of the property. The major terms negotiated in this agreement are in line with those negotiated for other digital billboards in the city. They include an initial 20-year term with a 10-year option to extend, a 30% share of gross revenue to the city, with a minimum annual guarantee of $200,000, which are received as monthly payments of $16,666, and an annual end-of-year lump sum for any amount outstanding if due. So as a point of reference, the existing operating Branston billboard has, in a 4-year average, brought to the city an extra $200,000 for a total of an average of $400,000 a year for the operation of that sign. And the agreement also provides for a 12.5% escalation of the minimum annual guarantee every 5 years. As previously mentioned, they would be required to remove the existing static analog billboard And additionally, they would be required to make a one-time payment of $100,000 to the city. And that concludes this presentation. Thank you for your time, and we're available for questions.
Mr. Olbert?
Thank you, Martin. Does the city own the property that the billboard is going to be installed on?
The city does not own the property. They would enter into a lease.
And so it's a long-term lease arrangement, as we've done with I think the original billboard, we owned the property on at Branston. It's this one and the most recent one before it, we do not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? The question I had then, we pay the sublease of $150.
Correct.
So the billboard folks are going to give us $350?
Correct.
Okay. How long does the sublease last for?
It's concurrent with the terms of the lease at 20 plus 10.
So that's a net of 200, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the sublease, that they have an escalator clause, or is that a fixed amount?
They are concurrent, so they both have the same terms. They would be escalated the same amount.
So if we get, you mentioned that the other billboard gets 400,000. So if we got 400,000, that means that the net, we're still going to just net 200, no matter what we get, because you said it's going to go in the same thing. So the sublessor will get the same amount of increase as we will.
Yes. So
this one is really 200,000. That's the number. It's not going to go up.
No, sorry. 200,000 plus 30 a revenue share of guaranteed 30%, and the owner is a different revenue share. So
you didn't say it that way, or I didn't ask it that way. So what's the difference?
So it's 200 to the city and 150 to the property owner.
So it's 350 that the folks got to pay us.
So they pay that guaranteed,
right.
And then they are guaranteeing the property owner receives 15% and the city receives 30%. I'm sorry, 20% to the property owner and 30% to the city. So out front of the total revenue that Outfront receives for that billboard.
Okay, all right. So, okay.
So just to put that into perspective, if this billboard were to perform as well as the Branston billboard has performing, we can expect to receive $400,000 a year.
Net?
On average net to the city.
So we pick up another $200,000?
From the revenue share,
okay.
Yes.
And how much would the sublease holder get then?
20%, whatever 20% is of that additional.
So they'd pick up another 150,000 or something?
Something to that effect.
Something to that effect. Okay. I saw that in there, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understood. All right, other questions? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item from the public? All right, gentlemen, what do you want to do?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2018-100, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving a relocation agreement for the removal of a static billboard at 239 Old County Road, APN 046-053-080, and approving a lease and sublease agreement for a digital billboard at 1119 Industrial Road, APN 046-152-210.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Discussion, Mr. Olbert.
Thank you, Bob. I'm going to, as I did on the second billboard that we approved some while ago, vote against this for essentially the same reasons. I personally don't really care for billboards. I think it's great that we're seeing them reduced or at least not increased in number. Wouldn't bother me if we reduce them. But the main thing that really bothers me is unlike erecting something on publicly owned land, we're sort of playing games here in order to be able to qualify the land as publicly owned through a long-term lease and get the benefits of it. We've essentially created an artificial monopoly for ourselves. I somewhat facetiously last time, but I'm going to mention it again here. We could apply the same logic and say nobody gets to open up any business in the city of San Carlos unless it's opened on land that the city has an interest in. And we could start collecting extra revenue income from anybody who wanted to open a grocery store or a liquor store or any other kind of store that we wanted. And that just, it just disturbs me on a sort of ethical and equitable level to do that. So I'll be opposing this particular transaction.
Okay, Mr. Grocott?
Yeah, I'll be voting no as well, staying consistent with the way I voted before. And Mark has stated all the reasons. The monopoly issue is, for me, the biggest one.
All right. Mr. Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be voting in favor of it, and there are many reasons for it. But revenue aside, I know the property owner. He approached me early on and told me that he is very much in favor of this. He has some family obligations. He's got a granddaughter that's disabled, and he said this is her annuity. And so he very much would like to see this go forward, so I'm going to be supporting it.
All right. The only comment I have is I didn't realize that the old billboard was on Old County Road. I thought it would have been on the freeway. I hope, to be quite honest, there are no more billboards to be replaced. And I would propose that perhaps in the future council, if they're going to be, they should be on the same street. In other words, the freeway. In other words, I'm hopeful that they're not, scattered about the city and we're just, it's a 2x4 somewhere and all of a sudden putting up a billboard. I know we're not doing that here, but that's a concern I have. I will be supporting this, but I hope in the future that we don't have, like I said, that for some reason that really does throw me off. Perhaps it's close enough to the freeway to be seen, but it's bothersome, but not bothersome enough to not support this issue. So, any other comments? If not, roll call, please.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Grocott?
No.
Councilmember Obert?
No.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
And Mayor Castilli?
Yes. All right, moving on. We have, well, we aren't going to do any reporting tonight, any council communications or anything? Well, if anyone has anything to say, I'll certainly listen to them. Anyone have any comments? If not, staff, anything? Okay, move on. All right. If nothing else, meeting adjourned. Thank you.